Cat Beale. When people say they chose to be heterosexual, you can hear the regret in their voice. You know what? I'll tell you something. Honestly, like Brian Fisher, like that right winger. Like, I wrote this in FUBAR because there was. I mean, this is what people forget. In fact, will you look for this? Because I wanna play this during my interview with Cliff. President Bush had a national primetime address to the country to announce that he wanted to push for a constitutional amendment to make it impossible for gay people to marry. It was one of the most chilling things I feel like I've ever witnessed. And during that era, the anti-gay rhetoric was so strong. And now I think what we're seeing is like sort of like the white knucklers screaming out. But there were so many congressmen who were in the closet who were, sort of. And Cheryl and I wrote that book, FUBAR. We were talking about, like, this is just about people who had self-hate and they're projecting it onto others. And I feel like I've come to really understand that. And I think, people joke about the idea of like so many homophobes being repressing their natural, I think, predisposition, their natural sort of sexuality. And I think a lot of these people, and now, like, when you boil it down, a lot of them are actually actively saying, Ben Carson was saying, I am totally aware that someone could be naturally, biologically predisposed to being a homosexual, but it is incumbent upon those people to make the choice to not give in to that inclination. And he's basically, I think, speaking about himself. And he almost says as much. And I mean, I think I have two responses to just his idea there. One is, if you can understand that one can have a natural sexual orientation, and you just make this determination, like, I am going to fight it, how is it so hard for you to understand that, like, maybe your natural sexual orientation is closer to 50-50, and someone who does not fight it in your mind is actually closer to 55-45.
Well, it was also...
Or whatever it is. A, and then B, it's also like, even if that's not the case, which I think it is, I think sexuality is on the spectrum. Even if that's not the case, why is that? I mean, it's your specific moral beliefs that should happen, that you need to fight it. Okay, if that's the way you want to live your life, fine. But where do you get off imposing that on other people? Because you are making that specific judgment onto other people and denying them rights because of it. I mean, I judge people all the time. I don't deny them their rights.
I also found it striking. I mean, we joked a lot about the prison clip that with Ben
That's
Carson,
what I'm talking
which
about.
is exactly what you're talking about. And we're finally, we're talking about it seriously. We've joked about it a lot, but I mean, there's also just the subtext that, I mean, the whole statement is completely ludicrous, but like he's also sort of just completely bypassing the fact that whether someone went into prison straight or gay for that matter, that a lot of sexual experiences in prison are violent and forced and coercive. And the fact that you wouldn't even consider that that might be your prime preoccupation in terms of a sexual experience in prison. You know, and people joke about it. I know people who spend time in prison. They talk about, no, that's a very serious consideration when you go in. How am I going to avoid being physically harmed, and how am I going to avoid being raped, essentially?
Of course.
Who would ever go to like some notion that this is actually just a really sexually tempting situation? I mean, that's a very odd sort of
Someone
place
who
to go.
whose biggest concern is, how do I maintain my denial of my own humanity? I mean, look, folks, that takes work. I mean, you want to lose weight? Try doing that. How many calories you burn? Constantly denying your own humanity.